Chris Music here with my friend. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my legal name is David Jordan. I sometimes went by Dave. I am known to most as that one guy that looks a lot like some guy I knew once. Uh, you may call me whatever you like. Um, I tend to prefer to be called
I
Adrian these days.
affectionately call him Bones.
Yes, and Bones. He's I've been Bones for some time, so that is perfectly acceptable to me.
Yes, so we've known each other for, um,
Yeah, Theater Two.
yes, maybe. I don't know. What a high school,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
say.
Early to mid early high school. Um,
Yeah,
so I mean, like
definitely
half my life.
shaped my high school years,
Oh man, I don't know what
our
I'd do without
friendship.
you. Yeah, that's half
Yes.
my life. Um,
Yeah, oh my God. Wow,
uh,
gone that far, huh? Anyway, so we've been talking video games since
mhm.
then. Um, and I would also say that my video game horizons are also where they are because of you and your influences, because we often introduce each other to stuff that we wouldn't, because our tastes are close,
Mhm.
but then we have these deviations, and it's not necessarily stuff that the other one of us wouldn't like. It's just something that wasn't ever on our radar.
Mhm.
And that kind of brings us to this, because we thought it would be fun,
Mhm.
um to, I don't know what you would call it. It's kind of a video game exchange, but not really. Kind of a
Yeah.
recommendation exchange. Um so I loved the game Red Dead Redemption 2 that came out, what was it, last October or something.
Yes,
Or,
October 2018, I think.
oh, okay. Yes, so October. Anyway, so I played it and absolutely loved it. Um but of course, I really enjoyed the first Red Dead Redemption,
Mhm.
and I don't believe you played the first Red Dead, did
No,
you?
I've actually not played any Rockstar game outside of some of LA Noire and about half an hour of GTA 5 on a friend's console once.
Oh, okay. Okay. Um, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not that, I mean, I enjoy some of the, like, I enjoy GTA, but it's also one of those games where if someone was like, "Oh, I'm not into GTA," I would never be like, "What? You gotta get into GTA." I would never. That's just
Mhm.
not one of those games. It's not like a it's just not. Only a certain kind of person's going to enjoy GTA, and they usually know that beforehand. Um, but and so that was, having said that, going into Red Dead Redemption 2,
Mhm.
that to me was different, because even the first one, I would say, is very much kind of, I mean, it was more GTA with cowboys. I mean, that's the crudest way to put it, but in reality, that is what it was. But I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is so much
Mhm.
more than that. It it I mean, it impressed me on so many levels. It was beyond just, oh, Rockstar makes good games. Just technically, they make good games, but I don't know. The story and the open world, and just the characters, most of all, I just got swept up
Mhm.
in it, and it reminded me of playing the Mass Effect trilogy through the first time.
Wow,
Um,
that's incredible praise.
yeah, because it mostly that. and even though you know there's not dialogue trees, there's not that kind
Hmm.
of RPG stuff. There's some, but not that much. But you can still talk to people. You don't
Hmm.
have as much of a choice, but it's still your choice to talk to them in the first place. So there's still relationship building and all that kind of stuff. The time you spend with people feels like it matters.
Yes.
So in that way, it really reminded me of Mass Effect. And with like, this is a bit of going off of the subject, but with Mass Effect 3, that to me was what was satisfying about it that I would think a lot of people will dismiss is that
Hmm.
the character arcs and the relationships that you built around through those games
Hmm.
was capped off in a very satisfying manner, except the end of, the actual big end of the game, fell flat, you know what I mean? But what I
Yes.
remember is the relationships that I built along the way.
Hmm.
And so, and not only that, but when it comes to a video game main character,
Hmm.
I I don't know if there's been one as deeply explored as Arthur Morgan in this. I'm sure there has been because there's a hell of a lot of games that I have not played. Um, and I'm sure like there's a bunch of JRPGs and stuff that, have all this kind of time and stuff to really delve deep into people. So, but so being outside of that and not really
Hmm.
having that time and all that kind of stuff and that those kind of luxuries that a really long RPG would give you,
Hmm.
man, he's got. I mean, he's got his own journal, so I mean, you can read it. It's updated throughout this story, and he comes off as very generic cowboy at first, but his uh, there's so much more to it, and it's such
Okay.
a character study more than anything else, and
Hmm.
that's what really stuck out to me, and what really made it different than
Hmm.
just it's just another the newest GTA with horses. And that's
Yeah.
another reason why I wanted to share it with you, because mostly
Hmm.
because of just the personal interactions that you get and that kind of and the world itself, just getting lost in it.
Hmm.
Um, so that's why I wanted you to um, play that, and I'm glad that it came to Game Pass, so that can finally happen. Um,
Yes,
uh,
thank you. Again, it's thanks to you that I'm able to do this at all. So thank you very much. There's a part of
well,
me
yeah,
that's
thank
that's
you.
wanted to play this at all, and just being able to do that is great, and having it accessible is nice. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, your whole case is the same one that I'm making.
Oh,
It's all about the relationships you build along the way and that sort of thing. It's a different sort of approach to it,
sure.
but the whole thing just absolutely drips with style and finesse
Mm-hmm.
and love. That everything that you do, even down to the mundanities that you would normally see in regular menus,
Mm-hmm.
is entertaining. It's at least fun to look at, and it's so stylish. It's unforgettable.
Hmm.
Um,
And let's
and that's why
reiterate, because
that's
I'm not sure
particularly
if I
cool.
introduced it, but um, the
I'm
game I will
sorry.
be no, it's my fault. The game I will be playing is Persona 5 on the PS4,
Hmm.
which
Yeah, not you're doing the original vision of the game,
yes,
which came out in 2017.
okay,
That's is the one that I think you got
yeah,
in the
yes,
store.
and I've been
Um,
hearing about this game for a while,
hmm.
but yeah, I don't know. So
Yeah.
now that and what's interesting is that so far, because I've gotten like maybe 5 minutes into the intro to this, um, and I see the big difference so far is mostly in style, because I mean like you said, it's very exciting. It's very, I mean, so it's beautifully. rendered. I mean, the animation and everything is
Hmm.
fantastic. It's like, I mean, anyway, but I mean, Red Dead is so slow. I mean, and I hesitate to say slow because that's often like a negative connotation to things, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? But I think depending on what it is, slow is the right pace.
Certainly.
And especially at first, it's really there's so much to do, it's really easing you into the game. Um, but what I thought would be interesting too is for first you to explain kind of what like why you wouldn't play this game otherwise. Like
Okay.
if you hadn't heard me talk about it,
Uh-huh.
what would your thoughts on it have been? And then I'll
Oh
do
man,
the
that's
same with Persona 5.
okay. Okay. S- Okay, great. It's I mean I'm reticent. Like I said, I've never played a Rockstar game. Honestly, everything that everybody seems to laud about them is what I want to divorce myself from in the culture of the video gaming nerd.
Hmm.
And I've never had any desire to fulfill the fantasy of being a thug. That holds no appeal for me.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, Red Dead and it makes it somewhat more approachable just because that's kind of the way that things were. But
Yeah.
it's the romanticized Wild West sort of thing. And that to me, frankly, is at least in some capacity more agreeable um, to commit than playing something like. And to be fair, though, I completely understand. I'm sorry, I keep saying I'm going to be fair. That's not to say that indulging that fantasy is a much healthier way to do it in GTA than it is to go out and fill in the blank. But
Right.
it's just not something that's been a fantasy of mine. So I don't
I
condemn
get you.
people who do play it. I do get it, and I think it could be a really healthy outlet, and people can do it that way properly. And I am certain that Rockstar can deliver an immaculately detailed city, um,
Hmm.
or landscape, or something like that, and tons of side quests and unique little things that you'll only see in their games, and Easter eggs that share throughout their continuity and that sort of thing. I imagine there's quite a bit that there is to like in this game.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just not something that would normally uh, feel compelled to jump out of my wallet.
Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, and I'm like I even said it before. I mean, I'm almost hesitant to say how much of a fan I am of like GTA 5,
Hmm.
and because we even played it online, me and my brother and Donnie and stuff, we played it online
Hmm.
for a little while before it just got oversaturated with douchebaggery. Because it is that kind of, I mean, that's the game where all the douchebags go. I mean, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's that type of dude. Um, so it, I definitely get that. Um, uh, so on my end, the real thing, my relationship with JRPGs, it really is kind of similar to my relationship with anime in general. Where like i- if it's I don't know if it fits the very specific criteria for me, then I'll probably really dig it. Like I don't like certain animes. I either love certain animes or I don't really dig it. You know what I mean? So but with so many JRPGs and anime fans are uh are really passionate about most anime. You know what I mean?
It's a polite way to
So
say that. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
so it's hard to when you're someone like me who's really digs very specific types of anime, you know what I mean? It's hard to kind
Mm-hmm.
of sift out, what I'm really gonna like amongst all the recommendations from the anime fans. Um,
Yes, certainly.
but when those things peak out, like for example, like the Full Metal Alchemists or things like the
Hmm.
Cowboy Bebop, um,
Yes.
if
Yeah,
someone
that
can
was.
come up
I
to
haven't
me,
seen that one.
oh yeah, it's great. But yeah, if someone can come up to me be like, "Oh, you'll love this thing because of these things as well that you
Hmm.
like." So like, oh, like, and the other thing about like anime and stuff is, I get that it's weird, and that's part of its whole deal. There's like Fooly Cooly is on another level of anime that I just don't watch. I not,
Hmm.
I don't waste my time with it. I don't know what's going on, and I'm not afraid of saying that I have no idea what's going on because I'm pretty sure that's the
Hmm.
intention. And like the wacky faces and all that kind of, I have a limit with that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, Same kind of thing with turn-based combat. Like I've told you, I played
Hmm.
Final Fantasy 8 and 9 back in the day on the
Hmm.
it was the original PlayStation, wasn't it?
I think that's
I
right.
think
Yes, yes, that's right.
Final Fantasy 8 was the second game I owned on the PlayStation. The
Hmm.
first being Metal Gear Solid, of course. Um, but anyway, uh, and I was okay with the turn-based combat. I never finished either game because there was so much of it. It
Yes.
was like I was walking through the forest and it's like I can't walk two steps without getting into another one of these fights. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
I do.
it was the grind, and before I even knew what grinding was, years later,
Yeah.
I'd hear people talk about grinding like that's what I was doing in Final Fantasy 8. That's what I hated.
Yeah.
So I think it just wore me down with turn-based stuff. So I kind of avoided it for years and years until the South Park games where they made it kind of interesting. And I was like, oh, I wonder if turn-based has kind of evolved through. I mean, it
Hmm.
must have. I mean, it'd be kind of naive to think that it hasn't changed since the PlayStation. Um,
Yeah, certainly.
so So yeah, like I'm open to it, but then it becomes one of those things of like, okay, I'm open to playing a turn-based game. Which one should I play? And then you
Yeah.
get all those people going, oh, well, you gotta get. So it's nice to have someone like you to kind of sort them all out and be like, oh, if you're looking for the one, it'd be this one,
Hmm.
being
Oh man,
Persona
that's
5.
absolutely. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt. Honestly, I was on a real downturn from JRPGs for a long time. I had pretty recently, earlier that year, around February, um, had an interest in Final Fantasy 15, and I picked that up, and I was really into it for like 10 or 15 hours. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but then yeah, the combat was a little janky. The magic system was strange and really didn't cater to those who like to use magic and that sort of thing, which I
Uh,
tend to do. Um,
mm-hmm.
but it had some really good ideas, but it seemed um, it just ended up being aggressively mediocre for having for clearly having the budget of a Final Fantasy game. Um,
Right.
and so it was a little rough. But I played the demo for Final Fantasy VII Remake. Oh no, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Just after that, I discovered Persona 5 kind of on a whim, um,
Uh-huh.
and from a recommendation here and there. Um, but I generally kind of pushed it off because I figured, well, I've never played any Shin Megami Tensei. I'm not generally that into anime or that sort of thing. I'm honestly generally kind of critical when it comes to anime just because I got so spoiled growing up with Akira. Seeing
Mm-hmm.
that and thinking that that is the benchmark for anime, it absolutely ruined everything else and still does. Like even things like Hayao Miyazaki films, I
Yeah.
understand they're good and they are fun and they're approachable, but it all looks the same to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all at like 8 frames per second or something instead of Akira's ridiculous 24. Um, and it completely spoiled me. And the same thing happened with Persona 5. In a
Uh,
different capacity though, because I didn't play any of those games. I didn't know anything about the universe. It looked strange. It had this weird little talking cat. I
yeah.
didn't really know anything of what this is supposed to be. It's like I'm supposed to be a high schooler in Japan. It's like, you know what, fine, whatever. It's got like a 97 on Metacritic. It can't be a bad game. Um,
Right.
so I popped it in, and you see that opening sequence of that wake up, get
Yeah.
out there, and it's alive and fiery and fun, and it just kind of is in love with everything,
Mm-hmm.
and it's magical. And when you begin the game, you really have no idea what's going on. At least I didn't. And there's so much to know about the game. And again, like you were talking about with Red Dead, it eases you in slowly and explains
Mm-hmm.
mechanics away as the game progresses and you meet new people and you get to know them. And what you're talking about with like relationship building and that sort of thing is what this game is about.
Mm.
It's and that's what makes it appealing is tangible results from your talking to people and hanging out with them and giving them gifts that they like and taking them to places that are cool and taking them to the ramen shop uptown or taking your geeky friend who loves art out to the new art museum or your little friend who enjoys doing like computer technical stuff and she loves playing games, take her to Akihabara and have her walk around and look at the electric town. It's fun, and just
Yeah.
kind of matching a little bit of that up. And every time you do that, you unlock something new. Like with your party members, they'll unlock new abilities in battle so that they can uh, do extra techniques with you, or they'll guard you from an attack at random. If it's going to result in your character's death, they will take the hit instead. But it's because you're getting to know them and unlocking these abilities.
Hmm.
And even outside of that too, like the doctor that you meet on the street can prescribe you some of her own homemade medicine, but it's better than the stuff you can buy in the clinic. And so she sells you this great stuff because she knows who you are and because you're helping her out. Um,
Right.
even stuff that's mundane and stupid and explained away in most JRPGs. Oh, this is the shop. Buy everything you need. It's okay. Yeah, I'll hook you up.
Yeah.
Um, or they have some reason to want to have your back instead of here I am with my plot armor.
Right.
It feels tangible and it made me look at the world in a new way. As stupid as that seems, but being able to realize that somebody's got your back. This in this world they just kind of put a label on it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's beautiful and it's all presented in this gorgeous, stylish bow with some of the best music ever for gaming. Um, just
I'm
exceptional work.
I'm interested too because, like you were saying, with the reasons you weren't interested in like the Grand Theft Auto games and stuff like that,
Hmm.
um, which is, I mean, yeah, I get it.
Hmm.
Um, and I was the other difference I would say with Red Dead that I think might help is, I mean, you start as a criminal.
Hmm.
You are a bad guy technically, but I mean the game is Red Dead Redemption for a reason,
Hmm.
and I think the difference is with because in the first game, to be quite honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
people who believe that the first game has a better narrative than the second are
Mm-hmm.
clearly seeing it through nostalgia because there's no way that because in this one you feel the redemption. That's the difference. If you want
Mm-hmm.
this game, if you want Red Dead 2 to be about redemption, it absolutely can. And that is the way to play it. If you play
Mm-hmm.
this and it allows you to play the game as a scumbag if you really want to, like
Mm-hmm.
all those types of games, do. But it's kind of like with Mass Effect and things like that. If you weren't being the hero, it didn't really like the evil playthroughs are can be fun, but they're not always as rewarding. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'd absolutely feel the same way about Red Dead 2. Arthur it becomes such an amazing character through his arc, and it's that idea of taking the kind of person who would be that guy from a Rockstar game and
Mm-hmm.
building him into something better, which is very unique also for a Rockstar game because it's almost self aware in a very mature way. Because GTA 5 was self aware in a way where they just created a character in Trevor Phillips that represented just players, just what the GTA fan
Mm-hmm.
wanted out of a GTA game, And he was just a horrible piece of shit, who just, you know, did whatever the fuck he wanted and, all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of
Mm-hmm.
their way of saying, well, you know, that's how you're going to play it anyway. So why not just make it a character? So it was kind of like a you asked for it kind of a thing. But then with
I
Arthur,
see.
they kind of start you with the potential to be that guy, but they kind of ask you the question through all these options of do you want to be that guy or do you want to be something else? Do you want to be the trappings of what this world has forced you to be, or do you want to take
Mm-hmm.
these opportunities to try and be something better? And in that way, the world builds with you too, which you remind me of when you were talking about um, Persona 5 with the way the world kind of responds to you. I mean, the game is about the world changing and growing up and all that kind of thing, and um, the time of the cowboy going away and all that kind of stuff. So the world
Mm-hmm.
literally changes around you. I mean, houses will be built in the time that you play the game in real time, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if you pet a dog more and more and more every time you come to town, that dog will come running to you when next time you come into town. So you just you feel the world respond to you, which is really great. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's what's interesting about both of these games that we've chosen is I think we've both obviously responded to them in a very similar way.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see how we take that piece along with everything else that may be different about a game that we would usually play in and see where that takes us. I'm interested to find out.
Yes, certainly. And that's this was again a great idea to be able to kind of record this side by side and just begin something new together on frontiers that neither of us normally would want to embrace. But your description of the redemption aspect of the storyline and has what's therefore must be defined by your gameplay is an appealing part of that character growth and experiencing that with him. That's appealing. I understand that.
Yes.
So thank you for that insight. I appreciate that.
I hope it helps you along the journey because I know that it, I don't want you to feel like you're stuck into being that kind of character because you're really not.
Hmm.
And I don't think they don't ever I mean besides like story missions and stuff, but even
Hmm.
then you're never really, they never force you to tie someone up and put them on the train tracks. You know, that's up to you. You do you if you wanna,
Sure,
but
yeah.
um I mean, but yeah, this and I was that stuff you're talking about taking friends out and things like that in Persona
Hmm.
5, like just to me that kind of stuff almost interests me more than anything.
Hmm.
Like, oh cool, I get to make friends and take hang out and faff about town with my new friends.
Sure.
that'll be that'll be fun.
Yeah. Or choose to make curry, so that you can have some SP increasing items for the next time you go into your dungeon. Or you can spend your time. You can go to the DVD store and rent a DVD so that you can learn to build courage for your social stats, by watching a Beverly Hills 90210 ripoff. Like, it's crazy stuff like that. Or you can buy a
That's awesome.
there's a used retro game console that you can buy at the secondhand shop up the street from your little apartment above the cafe. And when you buy that, you can find games for here and there that you can play and you can use to build guts. And there's a book that you can find, that you can read that can help you cheat so that you can beat the game, so that you can have a guaranteed win by getting through both of the levels. Crazy stuff like this that I never
That's
would have thought
awesome.
of. That I think is just brilliant.
Yeah,
Um,
that'll be another thing is as we do more of these, there's all kinds of fun secrets and things like that. I'm sure in
mhm.
both of these games that we can share with one another, especially when the open world kind of opens up to you in Red
Mhm.
Dead. There's all kinds of cool stuff.
Yes, I'm excited to give an open world game a little bit of time. Frankly, I don't think you're asking as much of me as I am of you as far as playtime. Playtime for Red Dead is probably something like 40 hours if I'm relatively thorough in side quests, I imagine, yeah?
um, yeah, I suppose that'd probably be pretty accurate.
Okay. Also, my wife is here laughing at the 40-hour mark because what was it in The Witcher 3? It was like 1,200 hours or something like that.
15.
Yeah. But also in Persona 5, you had not finished the game yet. You're like at 162 or something to that effect.
Yeah, something like that, and I'm just gonna play it all over again,
Yeah,
probably a couple of
yeah,
times once you're done with it.
it is colossal. Um, and it demands a lot of time and a lot of little things that you can put in place. Um, what I would encourage you to do, before we begin any of this, is not to pay
Mm-hmm.
attention to the trophies. When you're
Oh,
looking at the
okay.
trophies, it's going to be, and I say that because that's something that I did that I wish I hadn't, because they really force you to complete it, and if you don't do things on a very set schedule the first time around, you are not going to get all the trophies, and it's going to suck out kind of a lot of the fun of the game.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so I would encourage you not to pay attention to those and just play the game however you want to play it. But that being said, it's always a good idea to have a book with you. Because if you don't have a book, you will occasionally get a seat on the subway, and you might miss the opportunity to read a book and get some experience from it. Like you'll get a social stat from reading a certain book, and that sort of thing. Um,
Gotcha.
but yeah, don't pay attention to the trophies, but do be efficient with how you use your time and resources. It's something new to see. If you think there's nothing else to do, there's usually something. Even if you're trapped in your room, oftentimes you can make tools or work out and get your hit points up. There's always something. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, being efficient is excellent and a good way to play the game. But don't kill yourself trying to do everything because frankly, it makes it kind of less fun than it ought to be.
Right. Yeah, I get that. I would say the same to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I think I've said this to you before. I mean, play it as much as it remains fun.
Mm-hmm.
Do the things like I remember there was one mission where like, oh, okay, you just have to pick up these like little like this type of flower. Like, oh, okay, I've been picking herbs this whole fucking that'll be no problem, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and then I find one after like all these hours, and I gotta say, I mean, the 60-hour mark and all that. I mean, it's probably definitely a story, but I mean, I don't know how much I've because of shit like this.
Mm-hmm.
And just exploring and just finding every little piece of what the world can has, I I've I mean, I don't know how long I've spent, but looking for this flower, like, oh, okay, it's a very specific area. They're only in these trees,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to get them at night. I'm like, okay, fuck that mission. So I'm moving on. Uh, so if that doesn't appeal to you, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Uh, but at the same time, like the things I would encourage you to spend your time on, um, is really just being if you and it's gonna sound weird because it's a video game, but
Yeah.
some of the best time I've spent in that game is not really doing a whole lot, just kind of soaking things up. Like I'll
Mm-hmm.
spend hours just at my camp, like getting coffee and like listen to what people have to say and like, oh, stew's up, great. I'm gonna go grab some stew. And because they filmed, I mean, they were filming this thing for 5 years, the motion capture.
No way, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, so there is so much written content in that game. Every time I play it, and I've played through the story probably 4 times now. Every
Mm-hmm.
time I play it, I find something new in the camp. Something new happens. Like the first time we played it, after a while, we just had a dog out of nowhere. I was like, "Where this fucking okay? We have a dog now." I guess you know. But then the second
Mm-hmm.
time I played it, I was just having coffee out there in the lake, and then all of a sudden this dog walks up, and so I saw how we got the dog the second time. I was like, "Oh, I wasn't here last
Mm-hmm.
time to see this. So I don't know where the dog came, but now, so it's all about but it made me think, now I'm here seeing the dog. What else am I missing going on in camp? You know, in
Yeah.
this moment, there's just so much that you can experience and the the characters around you grow due to the events and it really behooves you to get in because if you're doing the role playing thing, Arthur is all about the people in his camp, and
Okay.
so that's what it's got to be all about. But sometimes it's also kind of fun to just go out and be a man of the West for a while, and just explore and hunt and not freaking take a shower, bathe, whatever. And then once I was out for so long, one of my camp members shows up out of nowhere. And we're like, Arthur, where the hell have you been? We've been worried about you. You've been gone for like a month. And like
Mm-hmm.
you want to come back to camp? You're worrying people. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll come back to camp. So it's just that. So it made me realize too that it's like, oh, okay, when I'm gone, they know it at camp. So
Yes.
it's that other thing of your presence means something in this world because open worlds are great, but the ones that are really great are the ones that you feel like your presence is felt and it
Mm-hmm.
makes a difference in the world around you. It's not just a bunch of repeating events, that are just happening all over the place.
Yes.
Um, and when they talk about open worlds being alive, I
Hmm.
mean, that's you know, that's it. And I guess I compare it to The Witcher 3 because I mean, the open world in that game was fantastic. I really wish I had gotten
Yeah.
into it more. I really don't know where the disconnect came from in that game. And it may
Well,
be because I played Red Dead first, quite honestly, because
hmm.
every time I played The Witcher 3, once I really got into it, it was like, yeah, I'm playing The Witcher, but I'm thinking about Red Dead.
I see. It's kind of
So,
hot. Nice.
yeah, what very sexy.
Yeah.
Um, which is weird too because I'm more kind of loyal to the Witcher brand because I love the books and all that kind of stuff. I'm already
Yeah.
in love with the world, but I don't know. But things like eating and thing, because like yeah, I mean that's a mechanic. You gotta eat and all this kind of stuff. But it, I don't know. I think it never got it never got to the point where like oh fuck I gotta eat. Like
Mm.
what's wrong with me? Oh, I'm starving to death. That's why. It like it wasn't like what was Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater or like I'm crawling around. I'm like, why am I losing health like all the time? And I check it's like, oh, it's because I have 4 broken bones. Yeah, that'll do it. It's like, well, in that case, I think I'm moving around pretty well.
Yeah, considering.
Yeah. But so it never really gets to that point of tedium, I think. Never to the
Okay.
I mean if you played Death Stranding, then I'm sure you know what tedium is. Which I mean,
Uh,
did you even finish it?
I did. I did finish it.
Oh, did you?
Um,
Okay.
I found myself thinking about Death Stranding a lot more before and after playing Death Stranding. Um, it's the strangest thing, but it was certainly unique and creative and
Uh-huh.
so forth. Again, we'll get there. But it's such an
And all
unusual
those.
beast. But I did finish it. It is meditative.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's
I
the
can see
thing. I
that
think
being a good word for it.
yeah, it's designed to be more reflective and pensive than most other games. It wants you to be patient with it. It demands it of you.
Okay.
And if
Well, that's
you,
good. I mean, then that might give you uh, then that might you might already built up some patience for you
yeah,
might have for Red Dead because I think there's moments of that too. Sometimes you'll be riding your horse, and the
hmm.
sun will come up and it's just you in the trail and you're just like, damn, man, good day to be alive today. you know that kind of stuff. Like
Well, and I appreciate you making that distinction of doing what interests you, because that's why you're here, you know.
yeah,
If you don't want to go and grow herbs, then you don't have to. But it is cool to know that the option is there for people who do like to do that.
exactly,
And
yeah,
it's important to for a game if it's going to demand a lot of your time to be full of stuff to do. And that's why like Ubisoft has kind of turned me off from their sandbox games of discover this and
yeah.
then find all the little things in the area game.
Oh my God,
Um,
running from point to point on a map. That's all it was.
yep, yep. It was a beautiful map,
Yeah,
all of them.
it was.
Um,
I mean, I could run from point to point pretty capably and all that kind of stuff, but
mhm.
yeah. And that's the thing too is everybody's experience playing an Assassin's Creed game is going to be the same.
Certainly.
A- And that's why, like with Red Dead, Ricky, me and Ricky we'd be playing at the same time, and he'd be like spending hours. I was like, yeah, I spent the last 2 days hunting. It's like, damn, you spent the last 2 days hunting? He's like, yeah, bagged me a few bucks and a few legendaries, and I was like, that's great. I was robbing banks and such, but that's cool. And then
Yeah.
then a few weeks later, I'm like, hey, so what you been up to on Red Dead? And it was like, oh, I just tracked down that serial killer. I'm like, oh, cool, cool. They're like, what you doing? Oh, I spent 2 days fishing. It's like you spent 2 whole days fishing. Like, yeah, dude, you haven't gotten to legendary fish? Like, yeah, yeah, you're gonna be doing a lot of fishing. And I've played more. I've done more fishing and played more poker in the world of Red Dead Redemption than I ever have in real life, like substantially. But and it's also fun. Just like sometimes you do have those days where I'm a cowboy. I'm gonna go to the tavern. I'm gonna get a little drunk, maybe a little
Mhm.
too drunk. We'll see. And if someone wants to start a fight, I'm gonna shoot him in his face
Yes, and
and
there's
then throw his
an
body in the
appeal.
pig pen.
Yeah, the wild abandon, ordering the tequila shot from behind the bar and so forth. Yeah, it's
Yes.
fun. It's totally
Yeah.
gunman of the apocalypse, and that's awesome, just in its own right.
Yeah. So I mean, it's got something for, and I like those games that got something for everybody who plays it. So
Hmm.
even though we may spend the same amount of time on it, we've spent the same amount of time
Hmm.
doing different things. So I'm all for huge games.
Hmm.
And I'm all for accepting the idea that I won't see every inch of them either, because
Yes,
I'll get what I want out of them, and that's the way it should be. Because I hate when a game I love becomes tedious. That's what happened with the
certainly.
Spider-Man game on PS4. I played the DLCs too close to finishing the game, and then it
Hmm.
just became more and more of the Spider-Man game, and like more and more of the
Yes.
side missions, and more of this. Except they got more and more difficult, and they're like, "Well, okay, this one's reaching now. Now you're just trying to reach with these controls because you can't think of another side quest. So screw this, I'm done." And you don't you don't want to get to that point in a game that you are really enjoying, you know?
Yes. Yes, that's upsetting. I am sad to hear that you tried The Witcher 3 three times and are still just not pleased with it. But from that, though, I appreciate that you've spun that into me being able to apply that to Red Dead and how that spoiled you for The Witcher 3. And that's an appealing concept that no one's approached before, for me, at least in regard to trying to appeal to me playing Red Dead.
Mm,
And that's because no reviewer that I can read online can say that to me, and you can, and that's so
yeah.
cool. And I love that you do that,
Well,
and that you're great at it.
Well, I appreciate that.
Um,
Well, and same to you, because I mean, like I've said, I mean, I've seen the 97% that the Persona 5 have gotten on Metacritic, and I've been hearing all the great stuff, but it just takes that one word of mouth. It's the very one important mouth. You
yes,
know what I mean?
yes. Well, thank you for putting your mouth around my issue. I appreciate that.
Yes. Thanks for being such an important mouth to me.
It is my great pleasure. Um,
All right. All right. Well,
but
this
no,
was good.
thank you. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, thanks to you, and be safe, you and yours,
Thank you. Yeah, you guys
and
too.
I love you, and
I love you too,
we will
pal.
talk soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks again for your time.
You too.